In a busy city, there was a small cafe tucked between tall buildings. The cafe was not very big, but it was always full of people. Some came for coffee, some for the pastries, and some just for the quiet corner where they could sit and think. Behind the counter, there was a young waitress who worked hard every day. She did not have much money, but she had a kind heart and always tried to smile at everyone, no matter how tired she felt. She knew all the regular customers and could remember what each one liked to drink. Her life was simple, but she liked it that way. One rainy afternoon, the cafe door opened and a girl walked in. She looked different from the others. She wore a neat dress and carried herself with a quiet confidence. She did not talk. She sat at a table near the window and looked out at the rain. The other customers noticed her and moved away, giving her space. Some whispered to each other, curious about who she was. The waitress watched her from behind the counter. She felt a little curious too. There was something about the girl that made her want to smile and reach out, even though she did not know her at all. Days passed and the girl came back to the cafe. She always sat at the same table, always alone. The waitress began to notice patterns. She saw that the girl liked to watch the city outside the window. She liked to sip tea slowly. She liked to write in a small notebook. No one tried to talk to her, and most people acted as if she was invisible. Some even avoided her on purpose. It seemed like people were intimidated by her presence. But the waitress did not feel that way. She felt that everyone deserved kindness, no matter who they were. She decided to be the first to reach out. At first, it was small gestures. The waitress would place a cup of tea on the table with a gentle smile. She would nod and wave when the girl entered. She tried speaking to her, but the girl did not reply. It was clear that she did not speak like other people. The waitress realized she might be deaf or perhaps just did not talk. She did not feel discouraged. Instead, she began learning small signs to communicate. She practiced in the evenings, trying to remember the simplest gestures that could mean hello or thank you. She wanted to make the girl feel seen and welcome. One morning, the cafe was busier than usual. People were talking loudly, and the clatter of cups made the air feel heavy. The girl entered quietly, and the noise seemed to fade around her. The waitress noticed her look of discomfort. She quickly went to her table and gave her a warm smile. She gestured toward a chair, inviting her to sit comfortably. The girl nodded slightly and placed her bag on the chair next to her. For a moment, it was just the two of them. The waitress asked quietly if she wanted tea, pointing at the menu. The girl nodded again. It was a small victory, but the waitress felt happy. She had made the first real connection. Over the next few weeks, the waitress continued to visit the girl at her table whenever she could. She learned more signs and tried to understand what the girl liked. Sometimes, the girl would write a word or two in her notebook and show it to the waitress. Other times, she would smile or nod, which meant more than words ever could. The waitress noticed that the girl loved pastries, especially the chocolate ones. She began leaving small treats on the table, hoping to make her days a little brighter. Slowly, the girl began to trust her. She looked forward to seeing the waitress and sometimes even made small gestures to say hello first. The other staff at the cafe noticed the bond forming between the waitress and the girl. Some were curious, some were indifferent, and some were skeptical. They did not understand why the waitress spent so much time on a customer who did not speak. But the waitress did not care about what others thought. She knew that kindness was never wasted. She wanted to make the girl feel safe and happy, even if it was just for a little while each day. It was not about being noticed or rewarded. It was about doing what felt right. One rainy evening, the cafe was about to close. The girl stayed longer than usual, staring out at the rain. The waitress approached her table with a warm smile and a cup of tea. She noticed the girl's notebook open on the table. Curious, she leaned slightly and gestured to ask if she could look. The girl nodded and showed a simple drawing of a cityscape with tiny people walking in the rain. The drawing was detailed and careful, and it made the waitress smile. She gestured thumbs up and pointed at her heart, trying to say, "I like it. You are talented." The girl's eyes lit up with surprise and joy. For the first time, The waitress felt that their friendship was more than just gestures. It was a real connection. From that day on, the waitress tried to spend more time learning sign language. She borrowed books, watched videos, and practiced whenever she had a free moment. She wanted to be able to talk to the girl as much as possible. She knew it would take time, but she was patient. Every small sign, every small smile was a step closer. The girl began to respond more openly. Sometimes she would point to a pastry and nod. Sometimes she would draw a quick picture to express a feeling. Their conversations were quiet but full of understanding. The other customers sometimes noticed, and some even began to admire the girl's creativity and patience. One afternoon, a man entered the cafe, clearly wealthy, and looked around. He was the father of the girl, a billionaire who was always busy and serious. He noticed the waitress spending time with his daughter and frowned slightly. He was used to people treating her differently, often ignoring her or being afraid of her because of his wealth. But when he watched the waitress, he saw something different. He saw kindness without expectation, patience without complaint. He was surprised that someone so ordinary could treat his daughter with respect and warmth. He stayed in the background, curious about the growing bond. The girl, unaware that her father was observing, felt safe and happy. She had begun to show little signs of joy that were new. She laughed softly at small jokes the waitress made, and she even started to ask for pastries she liked. The waitress continued to support her, always careful not to push too hard, always gentle and attentive. She knew that trust could not be rushed. It had to be earned, and she was willing to wait. The city outside might be loud and cold, but inside the cafe, they had created a little world of their own, full of quiet understanding and gentle connection. By the end of the week, the father approached the waitress quietly. He thanked her for being patient with his daughter and for showing her kindness. He did not speak much, but his eyes reflected gratitude. The waitress smiled, feeling proud not for recognition but for the knowledge that she had made a difference in someone's life. The girl noticed her father speaking to the waitress and smiled shyly. For the first time, there was a sense of harmony, a sense that kindness could bridge worlds, no matter how different they seemed. The story of the quiet girl and the kind waitress continued, with each day bringing small victories, laughter, and shared understanding. The cafe became more than a place for coffee. It became a place where people learned that patience, attention, and care could create a connection stronger than words. And for the waitress, the simple act of reaching out to someone who seemed invisible brought a joy she had never known before. A joy that was worth more than any tip, any praise, or any recognition. It was the joy of touching a heart and being touched in return. The cafe continued to hum with activity as the days passed. The young waitress had grown more confident in her ability to communicate with the silent girl. She had learned more signs, and every small gesture brought a smile or a spark of understanding. The girl had begun to recognize the waitress even before she spoke or waved. She would glance toward the counter and slightly move her hand in greeting, a small but meaningful sign that their connection was growing stronger. The waitress felt proud but also humble. She knew that building trust was a slow process, and she was determined to respect the girl's pace. One afternoon, the cafe was especially crowded. The noise of conversations, clinking cups, and laughter filled the air. The girl entered quietly, her presence almost unnoticed at first. She moved toward her usual table by the window, careful not to bump into anyone. Some customers looked at her with curiosity, others with a hint of fear or confusion. The waitress noticed their reactions but ignored them. She focused only on the girl, smiling and guiding her to the seat as she always did. After the girl settled, the waitress brought a tray with a cup of tea and a small pastry. She placed them carefully in front of the girl, using gentle gestures to indicate what was on the plate. The girl looked at the pastry with a small smile, nodding slightly. She picked it up carefully, savoring the taste. The waitress watched quietly, happy to see that her small effort had brought a little joy. She understood that these small moments mattered more than grand gestures. The girl's happiness was worth more than any recognition or praise. Over the next few days, the waitress decided to try something new. She wanted to create a way for the girl to express herself more freely. She brought a notebook and a set of colored pens, placing them on the table with a gentle nod. The girl's eyes lit up with curiosity. She picked up a pen and began to draw. At first, it was simple shapes, circles, and lines. Then, she drew more detailed pictures of the city, the cafe, and even small scenes she imagined. The waitress watched, fascinated by the creativity and care in each drawing. She gestured her admiration, pointing to the drawings and giving a thumbs up. The girl smiled shyly, feeling understood without words. The waitress continued to encourage these small creative moments. She would sometimes leave little notes with drawings or simple signs to communicate feelings or questions. The girl began responding with her own drawings or signs. Slowly, their conversation became richer, more meaningful. The waitress realized that the girl was not only intelligent but also very observant. She noticed small details in the cafe, the people around her, and even the changing weather outside. The girl's world was full of subtle observations, and the waitress felt privileged to be a part of it. One day, a minor incident occurred. A cup fell from a customer's table, spilling coffee on the floor. The girl froze, startled by the sudden noise. The waitress quickly rushed over, comforting her with gentle gestures. She showed her that everything was okay, wiping the spilled coffee and helping the customer without fuss. The girl looked at her with wide eyes, feeling safe. She signed a quick thank you in her notebook. It was the first time she had used more than one word to express a complete thought. The waitress smiled, realizing that their connection had deepened. Trust had begun to grow, and the girl was starting to open her heart. The cafe staff began to notice the bond as well. Some were impressed, others curious, and a few skeptical. They had never seen someone so patient and caring toward a customer who did not speak. The waitress did not seek their approval but continued her gentle efforts. She knew that true kindness did not need validation. Every small gesture, every smile, every drawing exchanged between her and the girl was a small victory in itself. It was a reminder that human connection could flourish in the most unexpected ways. One rainy morning, the girl seemed more anxious than usual. She glanced at the door repeatedly, as if waiting for someone. The waitress approached her table and gently signed, asking if she was okay. The girl hesitated, then signed back that she was nervous because her father might come to the cafe that day. The waitress nodded, understanding the pressure the girl felt. She stayed close, providing quiet support. When the father did arrive, the waitress noticed how tense the girl became. She was polite but reserved, clearly aware of his presence. The father was serious, focused, and somewhat intimidating. Yet, he noticed the waitress's calm and caring demeanor. He saw the way she interacted with his daughter, without fear, without judgment. It was a new experience for him. During the visit, the father observed quietly, unsure how to approach the situation. The girl, feeling the familiar presence of the waitress, seemed more relaxed. She gestured toward a pastry, asking for it, and then looked at her father with a tentative smile. The waitress nodded encouragingly, showing that it was okay. The father watched as his daughter interacted with the waitress, realizing that this simple, everyday kindness was something he had not seen in his daughter's life before. The experience left a lasting impression on him. As days turned into weeks, the girl became more comfortable expressing herself. She started drawing scenes of her life outside the cafe, little stories about her experiences, and even funny moments she noticed. The waitress encouraged her, asking questions through gestures and writing, showing genuine interest. Their interactions became a regular highlight of both their days. Customers began to notice the growing connection, and some even started to respect the girl's space, understanding that she was different and deserved patience and care. The girl's confidence began to bloom in small ways. She would point to pastries she liked, sign simple messages of gratitude, and even respond to jokes or funny gestures made by the waitress. The waitress continued to learn more signs, always patient and attentive, never rushing the process. She celebrated each small milestone, understanding that trust and friendship were built slowly, with consistency and care. Each day brought new learning, new joy, and new ways to connect. One quiet evening, the cafe was almost empty, and the girl had stayed later than usual. She looked at the notebook and began a detailed drawing of the cafe with the waitress serving customers. The care and attention to detail were remarkable. The waitress watched, amazed by the talent and observation. She signed to her, pointing to the drawing and then to herself, trying to convey, "I see you and I appreciate you." The girl smiled, a genuine warm smile, feeling recognized in a way she had never felt before. Through these small daily experiences, the bond between the waitress and the girl became deeper. They communicated not only through signs and drawings but also through shared understanding, patience, and respect. The cafe became a safe space for the girl, a place where she could express herself freely, without fear or judgment. The waitress had created a bridge between the girl's quiet world and the noisy, sometimes overwhelming world outside. And in return, the girl had opened a small part of her heart, showing her thoughts, feelings, and creativity. The story of their connection began to spread subtly. Regular customers started to notice the special care and attention given to the girl. Some began to approach her more gently, others simply respected her space. The girl's confidence and joy grew slowly but steadily, influenced by the consistent kindness she received every day. The waitress never sought recognition but continued to nurture the friendship with patience and understanding. She had learned that the most important gestures were often the quietest ones. A smile, a nod, a small sign, or a gentle presence. Through all this, the father continued to observe quietly. He saw the impact of genuine human care, realizing that wealth and status could not replace the simple, sincere gestures that truly mattered. He began to trust the waitress more, allowing her to become a regular part of his daughter's life. The girl, now more expressive and confident, began to share moments of happiness with both the waitress and her father. The once silent and reserved girl was slowly discovering the joy of connection, and it was all thanks to a simple act of kindness from someone who saw her as a person first, not as a title or a challenge. The cafe was quiet in the early morning, with only a few customers scattered at tables, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. The young waitress moved calmly between them, bringing orders and clearing tables, her mind partially on the usual routines and partially on the silent girl who had become a part of her days. She had learned that each visit from the girl was unique. Sometimes she would sit quietly and observe, sometimes she would draw, and sometimes she would try small gestures to communicate. The waitress had grown accustomed to anticipating her moods and understanding her subtle expressions. That morning, the girl arrived a little earlier than usual. She walked to her table with her notebook clutched in her hands. She looked around, noting the few regular customers and then settling into her familiar spot by the window. The waitress approached with a gentle smile, carrying a tray with tea and a chocolate pastry. She placed it in front of the girl, making small gestures to indicate what was on the plate. The girl's eyes lit up slightly, and she nodded, acknowledging the care with which the waitress had prepared the order. As the girl began to draw in her notebook, the waitress noticed that she seemed unusually focused. She looked at the paper with concentration, her hands moving with careful precision. Curious, the waitress leaned slightly and gestured softly to ask if she could see the drawing. The girl hesitated, then slowly opened the notebook to reveal a sketch of the cafe with the waitress serving customers. The details were intricate. The cups, the chairs, the movement of people, even the little raindrops visible outside the window were captured with care. The waitress's heart warmed as she realized how closely the girl observed the world around her, and how much she appreciated the little gestures that went unnoticed by others. The waitress nodded and pointed to herself with a smile, then to the drawing, trying to convey the message, "I see you, and I appreciate this." The girl's eyes widened slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her face. It was a small but meaningful interaction, one that confirmed the bond between them was growing stronger. The waitress felt proud, not for herself, but for the trust and understanding that had begun to develop between them. Over the next few days, the waitress continued to encourage the girl's expressions through drawing and sign language. She realized that the girl had a rich inner world, full of thoughts, observations, and creativity. She began to respond with small gestures of her own, like bringing new colored pens or small decorative papers for the girl to use. The girl's excitement was evident in her careful handling of the materials and the focused way she worked. Each day, she shared more of herself, and the waitress cherished every moment. One afternoon, a small accident happened in the cafe. A tray tipped over, spilling drinks on the floor and startling several customers. The girl froze, her eyes wide with fear. The waitress immediately rushed to her side, gently guiding her away from the mess and reassuring her through gestures. She showed that everything was all right, cleaning up the spilled drinks and calming the other customers. The girl watched closely, her hands trembling slightly, then slowly signed a small thank you in her notebook. The waitress nodded, feeling a deep sense of connection. This moment, small as it was, marked another milestone in their growing friendship. The girl was beginning to trust the waitress in moments of surprise and fear, something she had not done easily with anyone else. As the weeks went by, the cafe staff noticed the quiet bond between the two. Some were curious, others impressed, and a few skeptical. They had never seen someone so patient with a customer who did not speak, who needed extra care to feel included. The waitress continued her efforts without seeking approval, knowing that her purpose was simply to help the girl feel safe and valued. Every smile, every shared drawing, every careful gesture built a bridge of trust between them. It became clear that these small acts of kindness were making a big difference in the girl's confidence and happiness. One rainy evening, the father of the girl arrived at the cafe unexpectedly. He had been busy with business and meetings and had not seen his daughter interact with the waitress in her daily routine. He watched quietly from a distance as the girl sat at her table, drawing and occasionally glancing at the waitress with small gestures of communication. The waitress was attentive but not intrusive, moving gracefully around the table, checking if the girl needed anything, offering gentle encouragement through signs and gestures. The father's expression softened as he observed this quiet interaction. He realized that someone ordinary, someone without wealth or status, could make his daughter feel safe, happy, and understood. It was a lesson he had not anticipated. During this visit, the girl seemed slightly tense, aware of her father's presence. She kept glancing at him but stayed engaged with the waitress. The waitress noticed the tension and stayed close, offering support with small gestures and encouraging signs. She gently guided the girl's hand to the chocolate pastry and pointed to the tea, showing it was okay to enjoy her snack. Slowly, the girl relaxed and began to sign small messages in her notebook, expressing her thoughts and feelings. The father watched, impressed by the careful and patient way the waitress handled the situation. He realized that this simple, everyday kindness was something he could not have provided in the same way. Over time, the girl's confidence continued to grow. She began drawing more complex pictures, sometimes illustrating her thoughts about the city, sometimes stories she imagined, and sometimes little funny moments from her day. The waitress responded with gentle gestures, asking questions, and showing genuine interest. Their interaction became a regular feature of the cafe, and customers began to notice. They saw the girl as more than her silence or her father's wealth. They saw her creativity, intelligence, and gentle personality. The waitress's patience and care were helping to shift the atmosphere around the girl, making others treat her with respect and understanding. One day, the girl surprised the waitress by using multiple signs in sequence, trying to communicate a full thought. The waitress watched carefully, nodding and responding, encouraging the girl to continue. It was a breakthrough moment, demonstrating that their consistent efforts had begun to empower the girl to express herself more fully. The waitress felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her small daily acts of patience and care were helping someone discover their own voice, even if it was through signs and drawings. Even the father started to recognize the importance of these interactions. He observed that his daughter had become more open, more confident, and more willing to express herself. He realized that wealth and status could not replace genuine human connection. The simple gestures of kindness, the quiet attentiveness, and the patience of someone who saw his daughter as a person first, rather than a challenge or a title, had a profound impact. He quietly thanked the waitress in his own way, a subtle nod of approval that spoke volumes. As the weeks continued, the bond between the waitress and the girl became stronger and more meaningful. They shared more than just drawings and signs. They shared trust, understanding, and moments of joy. The cafe became a sanctuary where the girl could be herself, free from fear or judgment. The waitress, in turn, found satisfaction and happiness in helping someone grow, in seeing the light of confidence and joy return to someone who had been so quiet and reserved. Every small gesture, every smile, every sign, and every drawing contributed to a deeper connection that neither of them would forget. The story of their connection, though quiet and subtle, began to influence others. Regular customers who had once avoided the girl started to approach her with respect, understanding that patience and kindness were the keys to meaningful interactions. The girl's confidence grew steadily, and she began to show more signs of curiosity, humor, and creativity. The waitress continued to guide her with gentle patience, knowing that every small effort mattered. Their relationship became a beautiful example of how compassion, understanding, and consistent care could transform lives, even in the simplest and most unexpected ways. By the end of part 3, it was clear that the quiet girl was beginning to find her voice through signs, drawings, and gestures. The waitress had become a trusted companion, a guide, and a source of comfort. Their connection was more than friendship. It was a lifeline for the girl, showing her that she could be understood, appreciated, and loved for who she was. The cafe had become a place where small acts of kindness could change a life, and the bond between the waitress and the girl was the heart of that transformation. The cafe had a calm rhythm in the early morning, a soft hum of conversation, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, and the quiet clinking of cups. The young waitress moved efficiently, yet gently, attending to her customers while keeping an eye on the silent girl sitting at her usual table. The girl had grown more comfortable in the cafe, and her drawings and gestures had become more expressive. The waitress had learned to anticipate her needs, offering tea, pastries, or simply a kind smile at the right moment. Over time, their bond had grown beyond casual interaction. It had become a true friendship, built on trust, patience, and understanding. One morning, the girl arrived with a small stack of drawings. She placed them carefully on the table and looked at the waitress with expectant eyes. The waitress leaned over, her curiosity piqued, and began to examine each piece. There were scenes of the city, little moments she had witnessed on the way to the cafe, and imaginative stories that the girl had created in her mind. Each drawing revealed a depth of thought, observation, and creativity that amazed the waitress. She gestured her admiration, pointing to the drawings and then to herself, as if to say, "I see you, and I appreciate your talent." The girl's eyes sparkled with happiness, and she signed a small thank you, her movements becoming more confident. As the weeks went by, the waitress realized that the girl's confidence was growing not only in her creative expressions, but also in how she navigated the cafe environment. She started interacting more with the staff, making small gestures of acknowledgement, and even attempting to communicate simple signs to the regular customers. The waitress encouraged this growth gently, offering guidance and reassurance whenever the girl hesitated. It was a delicate process, and the waitress understood that patience was key. Each small success was a step forward, a moment of triumph that reinforced the girl's self-esteem. One afternoon, a minor accident occurred in the cafe. A customer's chair tipped over, causing a brief commotion. The girl froze, momentarily frightened by the sudden noise. The waitress immediately moved to her side, offering calm and reassuring gestures. She guided the girl away from the scene and helped her regain her composure. The girl looked at the waitress with wide eyes, then carefully signed a simple message of gratitude in her notebook. The waitress smiled warmly, acknowledging the note and reassuring her with gentle gestures. It was a small moment, but it highlighted the depth of their connection. The girl trusted the waitress to guide her through moments of uncertainty, and the waitress felt honored to be a source of support. As the cafe continued its daily rhythm, the father of the girl began to observe the interactions more closely. He had noticed the transformation in his daughter, her growing confidence, and the joy she expressed through drawings and gestures. He had always been protective, aware of the world's tendency to treat his daughter differently because of his wealth. Yet, he saw that the waitress treated her as an individual, without fear or expectation, and this approach allowed the girl to flourish. He was quietly impressed, recognizing the value of genuine human care. One rainy day, the father entered the cafe unannounced. The girl's eyes widened slightly at his presence, and a hint of tension appeared in her posture. The waitress noticed immediately and moved to her side, offering reassuring gestures. She guided the girl to focus on her tea and pastry, helping her stay calm despite the unexpected arrival. The father watched quietly, observing the trust and comfort between the two. He realized that the waitress's patience and kindness had given his daughter a sense of security he had struggled to provide. It was a profound lesson, one that reshaped his understanding of care and connection. Over time, the girl's interactions became richer and more expressive. She began to use multiple signs in sequence, attempting to communicate complete thoughts. The waitress responded with careful attention, ensuring she understood each message fully. The girl's drawings became more detailed, depicting stories, emotions, and observations of the world around her. The waitress encouraged this creativity, asking questions through gestures and writing, showing genuine interest in every detail. The cafe became a space where the girl could explore her thoughts freely, without judgment or expectation. The staff and regular customers began to notice the change as well. They observed the girl's growing confidence and the way the waitress facilitated her expression. Many started to treat her with respect and kindness, inspired by the example set by the waitress. The girl's interactions were no longer limited to her drawings or gestures with the waitress. She began to engage more with her surroundings, making subtle connections with the people around her. Each interaction reinforced her sense of agency and self-worth. One evening, as the cafe was closing, the girl stayed behind with her notebook, drawing quietly. The waitress approached and pointed to the notebook, then to herself, encouraging the girl to share. The girl handed over the notebook, revealing a detailed illustration of the cafe and the waitress serving customers. The precision and care in the drawing were remarkable, capturing not only the physical space but also the atmosphere, the warmth, and the small interactions. The waitress pointed to herself, then to the drawing, and finally to the girl, signing a message of appreciation and admiration. The girl's face lit up with a radiant smile, a clear sign of the trust and friendship that had been nurtured over time. As their bond deepened, the waitress realized that the girl's confidence extended beyond the cafe. She saw small signs of growth in her behavior outside the building, glimpses of self-assurance in her posture, her expressions, and the way she interacted with others in her daily life. The waitress felt proud, not for herself, but for the progress the girl had made. It was a testament to the power of patience, understanding, and consistent care. The father, too, began to recognize the impact of these daily interactions. He saw that his daughter was developing a sense of independence and confidence that had been absent before. The simple gestures of kindness, the gentle guidance, and the attention the waitress provided had transformed the way his daughter experienced the world. He quietly expressed his gratitude, acknowledging the role of someone who approached his daughter not with fear or awe, but with respect and warmth. It was a lesson he would carry with him forever. As the weeks continued, the girl's growth became more evident. She used her drawings to express complex ideas, shared stories about her day, and communicated more effectively through signs. The waitress continued to support her, providing a safe space and encouragement. The cafe became a haven, a place where the girl could be herself without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. The simple acts of care had blossomed into a powerful bond that transformed her daily life. The story of their connection subtly influenced the people around them. Regular customers and staff began to understand the importance of patience and kindness. They saw that treating someone with respect and giving them space to express themselves could make a profound difference. The girl's confidence and joy were evident, and her interactions became a model for empathy and understanding in the cafe. The waitress had shown that small gestures, consistent care, and genuine interest could create an environment where a person could thrive. By the end of part 4, the girl had developed a remarkable sense of self-expression and confidence. The waitress had become an essential part of her life, offering guidance, support, and friendship. Their bond demonstrated the transformative power of compassion, patience, and understanding. The cafe had become more than a place for coffee and pastries. It was a place where human connection could flourish, where small acts of kindness could change lives, and where a silent girl could find her voice through the care of someone who saw her as a person first, not a challenge or a title. The cafe was warm and inviting on a cool morning. The young waitress moved around with quiet confidence, tending to her regular customers, serving coffee, pastries, and conversation when appropriate. The silent girl had arrived earlier, her notebook in hand, her presence calm but full of observation. Over the months, the girl had grown more comfortable in the cafe, more expressive in her gestures and drawings, and more willing to share pieces of her inner world. Their bond had become stronger, built on trust, patience, and a gentle understanding that neither rushed nor forced progress. That morning, the girl showed the waitress a series of drawings she had completed over the past few days. The illustrations depicted scenes from the cafe, imagined stories of people walking through the city, and even playful depictions of the waitress herself moving gracefully around the tables. The waitress looked through each drawing carefully, pointing to details, giving signs of approval, and showing her genuine admiration. The girl responded with a shy smile, her confidence growing as she realized her creativity was being recognized and appreciated. This small act of acknowledgement meant more to her than anyone could have imagined. The father of the girl had also started visiting the cafe more often. He observed quietly, noting the positive change in his daughter. She laughed softly while signing playful messages in her notebook and used gestures more confidently. The father realized that wealth could not provide the same sense of connection and understanding that the waitress had nurtured through simple acts of care. He began to understand that his daughter's happiness and growth were being shaped by someone who saw her as a person first, not a title, not a challenge. One busy afternoon, the cafe experienced a minor mishap. A customer's cup tipped over, spilling tea onto the floor and startling those nearby. The girl froze, unsure how to react. The waitress immediately moved to her side, guiding her with calm gestures, showing her that everything was all right. The girl signed a small message of thanks in her notebook, and the waitress nodded, smiling reassuringly. These moments, small as they seemed, reinforced the trust between them. The girl knew that no matter what happened, the waitress would be there, steady and kind. As the days passed, the girl's confidence continued to grow. She began to initiate interactions, sometimes signing greetings before the waitress even reached her table, sometimes drawing playful sketches to share a story or a thought. The waitress encouraged these expressions, asking questions through gestures and writing, showing genuine curiosity and interest. The girl's creativity became more vivid, her confidence more visible, and her sense of independence stronger. The cafe became a place where she could explore her thoughts freely and safely. One rainy evening, the father arrived unexpectedly. The girl looked up, slightly tense, aware of his presence. The waitress noticed the shift in her demeanor and stayed close, offering reassurance through gestures. She guided the girl to focus on her tea and drawing, helping her remain calm. The father watched the interaction, recognizing the depth of trust and comfort that had developed. He realized that his daughter had found someone who provided guidance, patience, and friendship in a way that even he had struggled to do. It was a quiet but powerful lesson about the impact of genuine care. The girl's interactions extended beyond the waitress as well. Other staff members and regular customers began to notice her growing confidence and creativity. Some approached her more gently, others simply respected her space. The waitress's example had inspired others to treat her with patience and kindness. The girl's world, once limited by hesitation and fear, had expanded. She smiled more, signed messages more confidently, and shared her drawings freely. Each small victory reinforced the idea that human connection, understanding, and patience could overcome barriers. One afternoon, The girl completed a drawing that captured the essence of the cafe, the warmth of the environment, and the interactions between people. She handed it to the waitress, who looked at it with genuine admiration. The attention to detail, the care in every line, and the playful elements all spoke of a mind that had grown confident, creative, and expressive. The waitress pointed to the drawing, then to herself, and finally to the girl, signing a message of appreciation and pride. The girl's face lit up with a wide smile, showing a sense of accomplishment and recognition that she had never experienced before. The father, who had been observing quietly, approached the waitress and expressed his gratitude. He did not use many words but offered a sincere nod and a look that conveyed respect and thanks. He recognized that the growth in his daughter's confidence and happiness was largely due to the simple, consistent acts of care and attention provided by the waitress. It was a reminder that patience, kindness, and genuine interest could have a transformative impact, often more powerful than wealth or status. As the girl's confidence grew, she began to use her drawings and signs to communicate more complex ideas. She shared stories about her experiences, her observations of the world outside the cafe, and her imaginative ideas. The waitress responded with attentiveness, encouragement, and curiosity. The cafe became a safe space where the girl could be fully herself, free from fear or judgment. The relationship between them was not just about service or routine. It was about understanding, support, and the joy of shared connection. The girl's growth became visible to everyone around her. Staff members noticed her increased confidence, her ability to communicate, and her willingness to engage with others. Regular customers admired her creativity and patience, and some even began to learn simple signs to communicate with her. The atmosphere in the cafe shifted, influenced by the quiet but powerful example set by the waitress. The girl had become more than a silent observer. She was an active participant, confident and expressive in her unique way. One quiet evening, as the cafe prepared to close, the girl stayed behind, drawing a detailed scene of the cafe, capturing the warmth, interactions, and daily moments. The waitress knelt beside her, pointing to the drawing, to herself, and then signing, "You are amazing, and I see all your hard work." The girl's eyes sparkled, and she signed back a message of gratitude. It was a simple exchange but deeply meaningful, reflecting the journey they had shared. It demonstrated that trust, patience, and kindness could open doors to expression and connection that words alone could not achieve. The story of their bond quietly influenced everyone who visited the cafe. Regular customers learned the value of patience and empathy. Staff members adopted a more thoughtful approach, and the girl herself flourished, discovering her voice and confidence through gestures, signs, and drawings. The waitress had shown that small acts of care could transform lives, providing safety, trust, and opportunity for growth. The girl's journey was a testament to the power of compassion and human connection. By the end of the story, the girl had become confident, expressive, and happy. She used her drawings and signs to share her thoughts, ideas, and emotions, feeling secure in the knowledge that she was understood and valued. The waitress had become a vital part of her life, offering support, encouragement, and friendship. The father observed the transformation, understanding the profound impact of patience, kindness, and consistent care. The cafe was no longer just a place for coffee and pastries. It had become a haven where human connection, understanding, and compassion could flourish. The silent girl had found her voice, her confidence, and her joy, all through the gentle guidance and genuine care of someone who saw her as a person first, not a challenge or a title.